Hello and welcome to another podcast with me, James Walters, owner of Border Terrier Stanley and promoter of all things dog-friendly via our DogFriendly magazine and website. I am here with Steve Bennett, longtime owner of Whippets and founder of the dog-friendly business in 2003. The Doggy Podcast with Steve and James. In this week's podcast, we chat to Kirsty Kelley of The Nature Nurture. She is an expert in a practice that shows how humans and animals can connect with nature's natural resources for well-being and medicinal benefits, particularly with dogs. She has been a practitioner of this Zoopharmacognosy for some time and offers individual appointments and events for people and their dogs. These sessions explore the natural world and teach owners and their dogs how to strengthen their bond and benefit from natural remedies. So, Steve, have you ever used natural remedies for your dogs?
Yeah, I have. And also, the reason why I'm really looking forward to hearing what Kirsty's got to say, I have seen evidence of dogs, and my dogs and other dogs, certainly selecting plants in the garden that they naturally go towards. Grass, obviously. I mean, I think all dog owners have had experience of their dogs eating grass, but also I know it's sticky weed. We've got quite a lot of sticky weed in the back garden, and certainly one of our dogs just seems to absolutely love it. But whether that loving it means that there's something in it that he is looking for, I'll be interested to find out. And also, obviously, I've been involved with a business that started because when Billy Saluki was elderly, he was really struggling with sort of movement and motivation. And I took the advice of a veterinary surgeon that did use herbal products, and they worked absolute miracles for Billy, as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, I have, and I'm really looking forward to talking with Kirsty.
And Stanley's got a thing at the local park that he goes to, and he runs around the field and just suddenly darts up, and there's a little bush plant that he goes and has a nibble at, and I've no idea why that particular plant, but it's just somewhere he makes a bit of a mecca for. So yeah, again, I think that's connected, and great to speak to Kirsty. It's great to be with you today, Kirsty.
Morning, how you doing?
Good, thank you.
Hi, Kirsty.
Hiya, Steve.
Kirsty, we need a bit of an overview of this pharmacognosy before we talk any further. Give us a bit of a guide of what it's all about and where it starts.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a very long word. Zoopharmacognosy basically comes from the Greek, which means zoo, animal, pharma, remedies, and then cognosy is knowing. So what it basically boils down to is that animals know about remedies. This term was coined sort of in the late 1980s after a lot of research had taken place around animals in the wild and how they self-select remedies, and particularly with chimpanzees who were seen to be, sort of looking at plants that weren't particularly nutritious for them, but they appeared to be taking them to help with different conditions at different times of the year, such as tummy troubles and things like that, etc. So that was sort of like the beginning of the formal research of it, but people have known about how to sort of self-select remedies for a long time, and a lot of our modern medicines are based on the chemical breakdown that we can find within plants. So a lot of the observations were originally thought to have taken place when people were looking at animals, looking at their behavior, seeing what they took, and then looking at whether or not humans could sort of take that medicine as well. So in my personal sort of experience, I started working with this around 10 years ago. I used to work at Guide Dogs for the Blind, and I was in one of the local offices there. And I noticed that a lot of the animals that came in, they came in for their second stage training. So they're about 18 months old and, very excitable, very, sort of keen to be getting on with the job. But when they were coming in, we used to put them in the different beds around the office. And I used essential oils at my office desk just to help myself relax and to chill out. And I noticed that a lot of the dogs that came and sat by me would sort of chill out a lot quicker than some of the others. So I started to wonder whether or not there was anything in that at all. So I started to look around and found a practitioner called Caroline Graham, who is an amazing lady and has done lots of work around the world with different types of animals, including elephants and monkeys. She's worked with animal fostering homes like Bath Cats and Dogs Home, where they planted sensory gardens, and she worked with them to help dogs with behaviour and physical sort of challenges there. And so I did a couple of courses with her and started working with my own dog, Conrad, and exploring, what he might need for physical and emotional support. Looked then at doing some sort of case studies with local dogs in the area that I used to live. Went round with one of our dog walkers, and her clients were very, very kind to me and let me, come in and sort of have a little play with their dogs and see what they were looking at. So worked from there, and then I sort of looked into the nature connection aspect of the workshops and how actually maybe dogs could pick that out from the hedgerows after the pandemic, and sort of thought about that kind of way in which owners and their dogs are really bound together by a common language that is nature, really.
Kirsty, how has your own dog Conrad been helped by using Zoopharmacognosy?
Yeah, so it's been interesting to watch Conrad over the years, support himself for different conditions, sort of from emotional and physical sort of issues. And I think the most dramatic example was about a year ago, actually, that he had some problems with his back, and his legs had just kind of given way. And we thought originally that it was arthritis because he's getting older. He'd been, sort of taking things from the Zoopharma box with, that helped with anti-inflammatories, and we just thought he was getting worse with the arthritis, but he was asking for support from the box of tricks. And so I was working with him, and he was picking out St. John's wort oil from it, which was different to what he would normally select for arthritic pain, which was more around things like yarrow and sort of other anti-inflammatory oils and herbs that he would take. And I was sort of a bit curious because I was like, well, this is a bit weird because that's more nerve pain. So I wonder whether or not there's something else going on there. And so we took him off to the vets, and actually he had a spinal impingement. So he had trapped a nerve in his back. And that was stopping his back legs, kind of working properly at all. And he was kind of almost river dancing when he was walking. His legs were all over the shop. They were able to kind of support him differently. And we gave him different medications, from the vet. Then he's been on Librela for arthritis, and he had extra pain support for that, and he continued using the St. John's wort until that nerve pain kind of calmed down a bit. And that was really interesting to watch. And also then the sort of subsequent pain from that area. The vet had given us some Pardale, which is, as most, I'm sure, listeners will know, it's the kind of dog version of kind of paracetamol with codeine in it. So it's quite a heavy sedating painkiller. And I was offering it to him, and I still try to give him, with normal medications, the option to take it or not to take it. But the interesting thing was he was sniffing the Pardale, walking away, and then going over to the box. And when I opened it, he wanted to take natural version. So he was taking the sort of yarrow and German chamomile, which have natural pain-killing properties in essential oils, and he was sort of supporting himself through the natural methods. But as the years gone on, and that kind of pain, you can see when he overdoes it, and he goes nuts, as a Labrador's always going to do. He has then come back, and he's actually wanted to move on from the box to now take the Pardale. So when he's in severe pain, he then wants to take that. But if it's just a niggle, he's going back to the box and he's selecting differently from it. So I have found that absolutely fascinating to watch, that he has the capability to understand that what I'm offering him from a conventional medicine route it has the same properties but a stronger dose than what he can take from the Zoopharmacognosy box, and that he's choosing to up and down his own dosage accordingly, and not just what has been prescribed to him. So I think that's been a real educational piece for me.
Yeah, very practical example of the combination of natural remedies and pharmaceutical ones.
And I think that's always a really good thing to think about as well, that this isn't a replacement for veterinary support or veterinary care, but it's more like, if you use an example of keeping your car on the road, if you top your oil up and check your tires and make sure that your car is in good working order the whole time, then you don't, it's less likely to break. But when you take it to the garage, and it's broken, it gets fixed. And I sort of see that with healthcare. It's kind of, if we're using self-supporting ourselves to keep as well as we possibly can, and ourselves and our animals, then when we're going to the vets, it's only because actually something has majorly broken down.
Okay, so it's something special to him that really works for his feelings and stuff.
Yeah. And I think, the thing I really noted with working with dogs is that there is no possibility of that kind of psychosomatic response. Whereas, if I say to you, James, hey, have this lavender, you look a bit stressed, this will help you to calm down. There might be something within me saying to you, this is going to help you calm down, that actually helps you calm down. But you can't do that with a dog. It's an absolute genuine response that you get when you're working with them and you're offering them something. And I found that with Conrad, that he has his go-tos for particular conditions that he might want to support himself with.
To labour the point, it is about self-selection. It is about the dogs.
Yeah, absolutely. So it sort of differs really from, either aromatherapy or, sort of other therapies or working with natural products. That basically it's around the dog self-selecting the support that they want. And that's from a range of essential oils, from herbs, from things like algae powder, like spirulina, for example, even down to the sort of natural minerals like clay, which they will use to, help with wounds and things like that as well. That the dog has the capability to pick out with that amazing nose that they have, the compounds that are actually in those natural remedies, and they can kind of work out from that what they actually need to help support themselves. And it is a very, very natural and instinctive process, which when you watch them, that you can see them, kind of really going through, and they're referencing almost as they're sniffing different things, and they're looking, and they're working out, what actually works for them, which is very different to, sort of when we maybe work with natural product and we think, oh, my dog's stressed, I'll give it some, some of this tea, or I'll give it a sniff of this, or put something on the diffuser that'll help it to calm down. That's us projecting what we think the dog needs. Whereas Zoopharmacognosy is very much about enabling that dog to choose for itself and to communicate with you what might be going on. So it works for physical conditions. They will self-support for pain. Different oils and different herbs help with anti-inflammatory responses, help as painkillers and analgesics. They'll also support for emotional conditions. And I've had one gorgeous dog that was absolutely my favorite response, that had was a greyhound, had lost their partner, dog in the household, and was very, very clearly grieving very deeply, and wouldn't engage with other dogs, and actually came on one of our dog-friendly retreats and had been very distant from the other dogs. And after the workshop, we did some sort of one-on-one work. And actually, you could see the dog was very heavily sort of self-selecting things like neroli, which is often also called orange blossom, which is a beautiful one for separation anxiety or for grief. It was selecting, very much all of the oils and the herbs that would help just to get over that feeling of grief. So again, the violet leaf was very prominent there, rose, and sort of different oils that actually support that kind of whole emotional range that comes together with feeling that very deep sadness. And she self-selected. She lay down and she worked with some essential oils very, very calmly for about 45 minutes, went, had a little sleep in the corner, then boinked up, went outside and started playing with the other dogs. And her owner was in tears and said that's the first time she's actually wanted to engage with other animals, since she lost her best friend. So, some of the responses that the animals give to you after doing, this work with the zoopharmacognosy is actually quite extraordinary.
So, Kirsty, we've seen the application of giving the herbs to the dogs, but can you describe what they are in, the receptacles and stuff, so people obviously who haven't seen pictures and stuff, how do you sort of allow dogs to self-select these remedies and stuff?
Okay, so basically what I do is I have, it almost looks like a little smorgasbord of food bowls, really, and in that I'll put a lot of different options. If I know beforehand that there's something that the owner particularly wants to explore, then I'll kind of narrow it down to ones that I think will help, there. But generally I will put a range of different oils, so things like St. John's wort oil, which is a beautiful red oil, can help with sort of depression, and also with nerve pain and things, that sort of that physical trapped feeling. It's also very good for humans if you've got a trapped nerve as well, so massage that on, it works very, very well. And there's also some dried herbs there, so there might be something like marshmallow root. We might put calendula there, which is good for itchy skin. Marshmallow root is good for sort of anything. If you think of it, it helps to line the any mucous membrane, so anything like a cough or your tummy, it's very good for that. So I put a range of different materials out and just see. I let the dogs bring them in on a long lead and just see what they start to explore. And once we've sort of had a look at the sort of physical matter, if you like, then the essential oils I'll offer to them actually from an essential oil bottle, which I put my finger over towards the top so they can't actually make contact with it on their nose or their mouth accidentally. Sometimes the animals will choose to lick at it, either lick at the oil or lick at the fragrance around the oil. But and sometimes they'll ask for it to be applied onto the body as well. And there's an incredible vein that is just up inside the groin that seems to be the best way that dogs find to get something into the system quickly. And they will very often just raise a back leg. It looks like, a male dog wanting to go for a wee, and it can take you by surprise if they suddenly stand by you and, start raising a leg. But generally speaking, what they're asking for is for that oil to be rubbed onto the inside of the groin there. And it's a very quick way of getting it into the system. And I've seen a couple of dogs that really, really want that kind of major hit,
Okay, so when people have come away from the session, they're going to want more of those herbs to use at home. Mm-hmm. And would they do, as you said, would they just leave some out open, and would they then use them if the dog particularly wants it to be applied?
The thing is to be mindful that these are being used medicinally, rather than, sometimes you'll find that food, etc., will have herbs and things already. If you look on the side of quite a lot of natural food products and quite a lot of natural treats, you'll find that they have different herbs and things in them. So herbs can be given to dogs just for general kind of nutritional purposes as much, and for the same way that we might take a multivitamin tablet, for example, is how we as dog owners tend to support our dogs with these. If you're looking at zoopharmacognosy, it's very much more around offering it to them for therapeutic support. So I would sit with the dog while you're doing it and just, work with it, because it's a communication thing. This isn't about putting a bowl down on the floor and walking off. This is about actually trying to get a communication and a bond going with them, and actually understanding what it is that they're supporting themselves with, so that you can get that kind of that broader picture of what's going on with them. So it is a slightly different process. And it's also, if you're using zoopharmacognosy in this way, then don't put the food, don't put any sort of herbs, etc., into food, because then you've got no choice whether or not they take them.
Yep.
Always give it to them separately. And things like I don't know if you've heard of spirulina, which is something that we, quite often put in smoothies and things, very good sort of source of nutrients and minerals. and dogs will go nuts for it. It dyes their face green, and they'll come away and try and wipe that over anything they possibly can. So watch out for that. But it's a really good source of vitamins and nutrients for them. And a lot of the dogs on workshops and when I work with them individually will take a little top up of that anyway, because it's great for them. It makes them feel great. So things like that can be, quite offered quite often. But again, I would always say, stick with your dog. And make sure that you're supporting them with this. This isn't a dump it and leave it situation.
Kirsty, what formal training surrounds the science and practicing of zoopharmacognosy?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different approaches that you can take. I mean, as I said, I did a few workshops with Caroline and Graham, who's a great teacher, and she's also written a number of wonderful books that you can use for sort of self-study purposes. So one, if you're particularly interested purely in dogs, How to Heal Your Dog is amazing. I've also trained with Neal's Yard Remedies, so for human, herbalists and essential oil training, and self-studied, sort of for over 10 years on, using natural remedies with humans, and then sort of how to understand what the compounds within there that do. I think the main thing about understanding how it works with animals is to understand the constitution and the sort of makeup of the animal. So anything that I mean, vets, physios, etc., will really pick up on this, because they obviously know about the constitution of the animal and how the systems work within it. And of course, that can vary from animal to animal. Horses or cows, etc., will have a different rumen system than our sort of dogs and cats at home, but it will work on sort of all animals. And basically, so long as you understand what the compound is doing within each of the oils or the herbs, and how it's absorbed into the system and what effect it has when it comes in, you can come at it from a number of different ways. There's a number of great courses that you can do online. For example, the Canine Principles are now doing a course on zoopharmacognosy, and the Centre of Excellence does a quite an overview. It's not applied zoopharmacognosy, but it gives you a great idea of the background. Yeah, so there's a number of different ways that you can sort of engage with it and find out more about how it works with your dogs. But for me, the learning is in the practice within working with the animals and just exploring the responses, seeing how they work with the oils, and you'll understand how they actually work with it. Particularly with dogs, they will give you several sort of positive indicators. So they will, their eyes will go soft, for example. You get this really sort of doe-eyed look from them. They'll blink, maybe. You'll see what I call the nose sweats. So particularly with dogs like a Labrador, where you've got that sort of short hair and a large nose, you'll get that kind of wet patch come where the vomeronasal cavity is, where they're actually processing within the cavity there. They'll quite often lie down and just sort of almost look like you've just taken the legs away from them. It's quite a dramatic response sometimes. And also, if they don't want something, they will tell you very clearly. I've had dogs just walk away and just sit with their back to me until I get something else out of the box, and then they come back again. They will show you very clearly whether it's a positive or a negative response. And it's quite amusing. So I did one session with a Bichon Frise, and very, very certain of what she wanted and what she didn't want. And, she would look at you, if I opened something she didn't want, she'd look at you like you're an idiot, And then when you found the right, kind of remedy that she wanted to work with, you get this amazing connection with the dog. It looks straight into your eyes. And almost looks through to your soul. It's quite extraordinary. You get this real, how did you know? It's almost like you've performed some kind of magic trick, But they do give you incredibly obvious responses as to whether or not they're wanting to work with oils and work with the herbs.
And how long have you been practicing this? And it seems mostly with dogs. Is that the case?
Yeah, I mean, dogs are, where my heart is. There was a reason I work for guide dogs. There's a reason I've got a Labrador. I've always grown up with dogs. I've always loved dogs. A day without a dog isn't worth living, kind of thing. It's so yeah, I specialize in sort of that area, but it does work with all animals. And I think, working for so long in the guide dogs environment enabled me to understand that, even if you've got animals, quite a lot still, from the same litter, or they're, the same age, same breed, all have very similar kind of life experiences, and yet they're all self-selecting. It was really interesting to me to look at that diversity of how, and it's very much how humans, sort of deal with life, is that some of us will cope with emotional things differently to others. Some of us get aches and pains, due to either the things that we've done, normally through stupidity and overexertion, or but it's the same with the dogs. If you've got a sore leg because you've run up the hill too fast, a dog will tell you that and can support itself. Doesn't mean that it's a life-limiting condition. It means it's just a bit sore on that day.
We mentioned earlier about group events, Kirsty, and we've obviously had one on one of our dog-friendly retreats. What do these tend to involve?
Yeah, so I love doing the dog-friendly retreats, and the workshops around them. So really what we do is look at going for a walk to start with. So we're looking at how much stress, the human passes down the lead, really, and just really understanding about how nature, and just having a good walk in nature without your mobile phone, without stomping around, as fast as you possibly can, because you've got to get back and, load the dishwasher, just taking that time out in nature for you and your dog, and really understanding that what's around you, where you are, looking at the seasons, looking at the hedgerows. A lot of these herbs and the essential oils, volatile oils, and they come directly off the hedgerow. We might spend a fortune on them in a health food shop, but a lot of them you can go and sort of harvest yourself. So I take the participants round. We have a look at what's going on there and then, what might change during the seasons. And we just walk really slowly around, letting the dogs have a sniff and a snuff, and seeing whether or not they kind of self-select from anything that's in the hedgerows. And you'll quite often see the dogs, they'll eat some grass, which the owners initially are like, oh my God, they're eating grass. But actually, each different grass has a different set of compounds in it. And the dogs very often will select a particular type of grass for a particular reason. So Conrad, for example, very much likes it's like a tall, spiky grass that sort of grows in a clump, and he will very often take that and chew it. And I was like, I wonder what he's doing that for. So I sort of did a bit of research on it, and actually the compounds in it help break down proteins. So he's actually helping it for digestion and to break down his food. So we sort of explore that. We explore around how just being out in nature for ourselves and for our dogs can be a really beneficial process, and just help us to cope with the stresses and the strains of the day. And that sort of session is based around forest bathing exercises and sensory exercises, just to help us to relax.
What is forest bathing, though?
So forest bathing is it's sort of a Japanese principle that's called Shinrin Yoku. But basically research around being outside in nature any given time that you can, but particularly for 2 hours plus, and just being in nature has its benefits. So if you think that, we're talking about natural remedies, and I've already said that a lot of those you can find in the hedgerows, but volatile oils, which are essentially what essential oils are made up from, are coming off of the trees all of the time. As we're breathing out carbon dioxide, the trees are taking it in, they're giving out oxygen, we're taking it in. There's a whole cycle of life that is going on when we spend time out in nature. And, that we really, truly benefit from it. And there's been massive amounts of studies that prove this. And so, very much we're looking at that nature connection aspect for ourselves, and how we can be dealing with life better, and then how we can also then be better owners to our dogs, better parents to our children, and just deal with life a little bit more naturally. So that's what the sort of workshops start with. Once we've been for the walk, we sort of come back in and then explore, a sort of demo of the Zoopharmacognosy. And each dog gets a chance to come up and have a little play with the box of tricks. And we see what our dogs are telling us after having had a little walk outside.
Yeah, okay. And obviously this was part of our dog-friendly breaks, dog-friendly weekends. We had these workshops while people stayed over at the hotel and met each other and their dogs. And did you find that our guests and their dogs were particularly receptive to the Zoopharmacognosy? Were they better than other dogs? I'm looking for points.
Brownie points. Yeah. I mean, obviously, each of the sessions that we did were fantastic. And we had such a wide variety of people that came along. People came as individuals with their dog or as couples came along. So we had wide range of different breeds, different ages. And I think the key was, to make sure that everybody, that they were involved or that they are involved when they come to something like this. So just making sure that I understood each of the dogs and, and the owners and what their, their limitations or any illnesses that, I needed to know about. But their responses into it, particularly for those who hadn't really considered sort of natural therapies or knew that something was going on with their dog but couldn't quite put their finger on it, and then we sort of explored through the herbs and the remedies and made a bit of a breakthrough, and they could see that there was a reason why their dog was being reactive, or there was a reason why their dog was getting frightened, so it was a way to support them when they did. And at the end of the session, after we'd sort of done all of the individual demos, we make a spray. So we make an individual bespoke spray, which is based around floral waters, which are basically it's when you make an essential oil, it's a bit like making gin. You put water through the matter, the oil comes off, and the condensation, from the water comes down to the bottom. And those floral waters still have the kind of good compounds in them. So we use that as the base of the spray, and then we use individual oils to bespoke to each of the dogs' situations, so that the owners can support them when they go home as well.
Yeah, and we had really good feedback. This isn't the place to overly promote, but yeah, we had really good feedback from the sessions.
I think it's something new. It's something that once people start to realise and explore, it's quite incredible to see people's shift. And as I said at the beginning, there's always the kind of worry about is all of this natural therapies thing a bit placebo? But your dog will tell you, your dog will respond.
Can you tell us a bit about other events you've done, Kirsty?
Yeah, so I've done, obviously quite a lot of individual sessions with people. I've done some great CPD sessions for vets and for physios, where again it's been great so that they can understand there are other ways to support the dogs that come into their care. But the one that I've done recently that was fantastic, we did a corporate event for Specsavers, who had a 2-day event with their regional partners who came along, and I thought it was brilliant because they had their families, the husbands and wives of the partners came along too and brought their dogs. So it was a full dog-friendly corporate do. And on the first day, it was great. They had a session with Graham Hall from Dogs Behaving Very Badly, who was talking about their behaviour, not the partner's behaviour, the dog's behaviour on that occasion, but was supporting them to sort of understand the behaviors of dogs, and gave them a great day on day one. And then we all had dinner together in that evening, which was great. We could all swap sort of dog stories. And then on the second day, we went out and did the Nature Connection walk and went around the local area up in Stroud, up at Rodborough Common there, looking at the area, looking at what was going on in the hedgerows. And then we all did a demo session afterwards. And it was really interesting to chat to Graham as well, and to it was a new approach for him as well. So we were hoping that maybe he would be interested in picking that up again.
And have you got a Channel 4 show coming up soon then now?
Well, obviously, I'd like to think there was one on the horizon, but I think it would be. I mean, I genuinely find that people have such an interest when they start to observe that, because it's a very obvious reaction that the dogs are giving you. It is very visual. So it could be something that why not? Let's have a channel. Let's have a Channel 5 show, because obviously I'd like to be next door to Graham on the listing.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll do what we can. Are there any particular dogs that are better at self-selecting? Any that you've noticed? Labradors, the clever dogs. Sorry, all the terriers that I own and stuff, but
it's well, there's two things that really can sort of affect the responses. Firstly, if there's a condition that the dog is particularly wanting to self-select for, those dogs are really responsive. So, for example, even on the Specsavers, there was a tiny little Chihuahua cross who was getting older, arthritic, but had heart problems, and was very, very keen to explore, things like hawthorn berries, which are great for, supporting the cardiovascular system. And a lot of other sort of herbs that helped with sort of anti-inflammatory responses. So if you've got a dog that's got a particular condition, you very often see a very sort of intense response. But in terms of breeds, all the sort of cockapoos or anything along that are very curious, and there's a lot that will come up and really want to be exploring the box there. Labradors will be in it and looking at it before they've even realized what they're doing, and then they have a little twig on that. But yeah, and it seems to be as well, those that are a little bit more introverted, the dog will see this as a gentler sort of therapy.
And if your dog doesn't seem to respond to this, does that tell you anything?
It can do. I mean, sometimes it's just that the dog's fine, and that's great. We're looking at something that's to support the dog. So if the dog isn't taking anything, it doesn't feel like it wants some support. There is sometimes a bit of a, when you start working with your dog's not used to you working in that way with it, and you can get a bit of almost like a teenage response, like, oh, don't tell me about this. You've got a bit of a trust to build up there, and just that you're trying to support the dog. We spend our time literally as pup parents, most of the time telling them what to do, what not to do. So actually just coming at it, making the surroundings different, sit on the floor with them, bring out a special blanket, do something that shows you are entering into this space, can get a better response from your dog in terms of curiosity and wanting to work with you. And I mean, I've worked with Conrad now for nearly 10 years or so, and it's he now tells me when he wants something. He will go, I leave all the box with the oils, etc., on the floor. If he wants something, he goes up and flips the lid on the box. And then I go over, pull out the blanket, we sit down and explore what he wants, together. And I can, he knows he can trust me to ask me, and that I will, sort of work with him on that. And that's, I think, the thing that you need to build up with your dog when you start working with this. It's that mutual curiosity and a desire to kind of like, yeah, I'm here for you. Let's just figure this out.
Kirsty, what's happening in 2025? Can we come to another workshop? Tell us about what you're planning or doing.
So 2025 is going to be quite exciting because we've just moved. So I used to live sort of in the Hampshire area, so ran sessions around Hampshire, Dorset, sort of Surrey area, and we just moved to Somerset. So we are now looking at sort of setting those up in the Somerset area and around Devon and Dorset. So hopefully we'll be able to book in some new dog-friendly retreats, which would be amazing.
Yes, yeah, we will do. Yeah, I'm sure based on this, but also the previous experiences, people will be very keen to come.
Fantastic. So, I mean, obviously keep an eye out on the dog-friendly side, but I will be looking for sort of new venues just to be able to run the day workshops. And then again, looking at sort of corporate opportunities and ways that we can, sort of work individually with our dogs and things as well. So I feel very positive that 2025 is going to be quite exciting for the Nature Nurture and for working with Zoopharmacognosy.
Also, Kirsty, can you tell us where our listeners can find out a bit more about Kirsty Kelley?
Yep. So I've got a website, which is www.thenaturenurture.com, and also on social media, which I'm not particularly great at, but please bear with me if you follow me. So it's at The Nature Nurture on Instagram and Facebook. And obviously, as I develop new things for 2025, they'll go up on those forums, as well as obviously through the dog friendly channels.
It's been absolutely fascinating talking to you, Kirsty. It's such a rich subject with so much to understand. But I think, as we said, every dog that has been involved in some way seems to react to it. And thank you for coming on today and telling us more about it.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for having me. And I hope the listeners have enjoyed exploring the conversation, as well as the herbs and oils.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsty. To find out more about Dog Friendly, the Dog Friendly magazine, the Dog Friendly Awards, visit www.dogfriendly.co.uk.